Hello and welcome to Life of Die, the podcast which discusses all things relating to role-playing games and tabletop gaming. I'm Gordon, your regular host, but today, as we turn our attention to Warlord Games Bolt action, I'll be stepping aside to allow fellow Diecasters Craig and Chris to take over. Let's see what they've got to say about this popular World War II war game.
Hello.
Howdy ho.
Hi. So, Bolt action. Warlord Games platoon level World War II and a bit beyond game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were the one that got me into it as a little bit of a lockdown project. I think we planned on having a few more games under our belt by now.
Yeah,
obviously,
that was all out the window.
Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but it has given us a lot of time to flick through the Warlord website and probably buy more than we
Spend
really
a
needed.
lot of money.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
it's good, and it's also, I think for me, it's sparked off a bit of an interest again in kind of World War II and movie games and everything like that. So yeah, it's always good to revisit, and I guess.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the main things that attracted me to it, was doing something a little bit more historical than your usual kind of fantasy games. Something that's got a bit of realism to it, and that you can do a bit of research into.
No, I think that's.
So that was one of the big draws for me. That, and who doesn't love painting model tanks?
Absolutely, yeah. The tank painting is one of those little pleasures in life.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it was a good palate cleanser for me as well, getting away from sci-fi and fantasy, and it's an interesting one because I think it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, historical gaming and its imminent death, if you believe the press. I think War Games Illustrated have done a bit of a kind of straw poll on it recently, and they've asked a lot of YouTubers and influencers and such like to not the same ones that are selling foam mattresses on Instagram, but the ones involved in wargaming. They've kind of taken a straw poll and asked them, how do we save historic wargaming? And I think when they talk about historic wargaming in a bit of a broad term, I think the thing that comes to mind for a lot of people is that really heavy stats, chips, maybe not even necessarily, playing out combat, but a lot of the time they'll be bogged down in the minutiae of logistics and communications and effective communications down from commanders down to squad leaders and all that kind of stuff, which is cool, and that's definitely
it's not going to get the kids involved, though, is it?
Yeah, it's not the kids. The kids these days. No offense to the kids these days, but yeah, there's definitely an attention span and a kind of action of what wargaming is, I think, for a lot of people. And I think if you've been brought up, much like perhaps yourself and I, brought up in that kind of Warhammer 40,000 era, where things are a little bit more streamlined and a bit more accessible, then it's maybe difficult to see yourself getting into historics and stuff. But as I approach a slightly more mature age, I start to now look at Napoleonics and large scale mass combat battles and stuff and go, I could get into that, but I'm not quite there yet. But I think bolt action definitely fills a bit of a gap, because as we'll talk about a bit later on, the rules are very simple, mechanically quite slick, easy to build armies for, accessible with starter box sets, etc. So I think
it's cheap.
Yeah, well, it's cheap, comparatively cheap.
Comparatively cheap to other manufacturers.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
you could get an army set up for less than 50 quid.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that they do really well, is these kind of starter boxes for armies, and it is about 50 quid for effectively what's 1,000 points or something, which is a decent sized game.
Yeah,
even
a box of infantry. I mean, you're getting 30 men in a box.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you can build up from
a small army. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and from that you can build up, all your HQ units and your specialists and everything. So it's really accessible in that way, and it's definitely it's one of those ones as well. It appeals to me because it's kind of set in stone. That it's not one of those ones that they're going to bring out a game-breaking
The
a game-breaking
unit
new
that's gonna
tank.
win all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because it would have been a very different. We'd be sitting in a very different chat group probably at the moment if that was the case.
Exactly.
But yeah, I like I was about to say compactness of it, but the actual range of miniatures and the range of forces is pretty overwhelming. I think it's
Yeah.
impressive. If you can think of it, or if you can find an
If you-
article or find
if you
a
read about it somewhere,
yeah,
there's a
if
model there
you
for
found
it.
it, yeah, exactly. So there's plenty to get stuck into from that point of view. But it's it's definitely it's familiar, I guess, is one of the things I'd say. Like, everyone knows a
Yeah.
Tiger tank and everyone knows a Sherman and
Yeah.
US paratroopers and all that kind of stuff. So it's fairly familiar territory for a lot of people, which makes it a bit more accessible again, which is good.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was quite weak-willed in getting into it. You obviously
You were very
effectively
weak-willed. I
yeah, you
said
effectively
we'll
messaged
get
me.
a couple of squads. We'll just do just the little skirmish games, the
Yeah.
firefight rules, and before you knew it, you'd bought the entire British Army by the looks of it.
Well, it was a kind of eBay job lot, which in fairness, when in hindsight, really wasn't great value. Again, I hadn't done my research. I hadn't realised how comparatively cheap it was. So I saw this set of stuff on eBay. It was a Churchill tank, standard British infantry, and paratroopers platoons. So kind of 30 paratroopers, 30 British mid-war, late-war infantry, and a Churchill tank for 50 quid. And I was like, just buy it now before this guy realizes he's been mugged. And then I bought it, and then kind of priced it up against the RRP, and it was pretty much about 50 odd quid. I think I saved about a tenner maybe on it, but again, it was still happy. It was kind of stuff I would have bought anyway, probably.
Was it already built, or was it?
No, it was all brand new. It was
right,
actually from a kind of friendly local game store. They must have been doing their own little bundle or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really realize. I mean, but like I say, it was all stuff I was kind of keen on getting anyway. And it was a good starting point for a force. Again, unbeknownst to me, what really came in the boxes. But yeah, it gives you kind of veteran infantry. It gives you your regular Tommies and a tank, which is, it's a sizable force. If you were to field it all, you'd be well over the kind of 1,000-point mark. So yeah, that was me off to a running start with it.
Yeah.
And I think you were a bit more.
I
You were
was
a bit more kind of conservative, a bit more thoughtful.
I actually split they do a starter set called Band of Brothers, and it's basically US airborne against the Wehrmacht, and you get, I think it was 24 airborne troops.
Yeah.
And the Germans get, I think it's 12, but they get half track as well with it.
Yeah.
So I split that with my brother, because he was interested in doing the Germans in it. So that's how I kind of started, and then just added to the force I had.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really cool set. That, and it comes with a little kind of ruined farmhouse as well.
Yeah, it's perfect for getting into the game.
But yeah, it's quite cool because it's kind of asymmetric as well. A lot of these times you see starter sets and it's kind of mirrored forces or whatever. But
yeah, definitely the Germans are a wee bit underpowered in the starter set, but
yeah,
it depends on the type of game you're playing, I suppose.
Yeah, no, as an introduction, it's
definitely.
Really good.
I mean, and you get everything you need to play. You get dice, you get miniatures, you get pin markers and all the other things that you need. Templates, and as you say, a little bit of scenery as well to get you going.
Yeah,
so
no, they've really kind of.
If you're thinking about it, it's definitely the way to go with it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Something else to do. They do these. Exactly. Yeah, don't do as I do. Yeah, it's a warning in many ways. But yeah, they also do. Warlord do starter boxes for most of the major factions as well, with all their kind of plastic and metal stuff as well. And that's something I actually picked up again quite quickly, was because again it kind of makes me see myself from the outside when I talk about this sort of stuff. But yeah, I saw the Deutsche Africa Corps starter set on Amazon for like, I don't know, maybe £5 cheaper than it normally is. I think I did myself a discredit. I think it was maybe 10 or 15 cheaper. So I think it was about 50 quid or something.
Yeah.
And that gives you, you get a lot of stuff in that box. You get 30 troops, you get mortar, heavy machine gun, or medium machine gun, sorry, Panzer III, and a flak 88. So to buy all that separately, you kind of coming close to 80-ish quid. So I thought, that's a cracking deal. And I always fancied, the idea was obviously that we'd get a couple of kind of mid-late war sets so we could play each other and not break the immersion. But I kind of couldn't resist doing the DAC, and it's one of those ones I kind of, I don't know, I've got, there's still a slightly healthy, unsettled feeling I get about modelling and painting Nazis. So I think when you go for the DAC, you're kind of taking a slightly moral high ground, as historically, obviously, they weren't as fanatical or as
compared to me,
into
who's sitting painting SS soldiers.
Yeah. But again, I think when you go, if you go SS, you can go one of two ways with that, and I think you're doing it the right way. And the way I've always seen the SS is a win-win. If they get slaughtered by the Brits or the Americans, you get a slight warm feeling in your heart, as well as if you win the game. So, yeah, they're an interesting one to go for. But certainly I think I would need to take them out of the sight of my relatives, effectively.
It's a bit of a touchy subject.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that it's still not quite accepted, and I'm quite happy that that's the case.
Yeah, of course.
And that's one of the things. It's something I know we're maybe kind of rambling a bit, or I'm probably rambling a bit here, but it's one of those things I always worry about when I do anything historic or anything kind of World War II related specifically. So I think back to the times when I used to play Airsoft, and that was, you got a similar kind of crowd at that. And you'd always wonder when someone turns up in like an SS uniform, or someone turns up. It's like, are you doing this because you're into history, or is it something more sinister? And I think that's probably why I don't really engage with the community as much as I possibly could. For like full action stuff, and I think we've both recently started posting up the miniatures and stuff like that, just for a bit of motivation and a bit of encouragement, as well as just to be pounded by the rivet counters as well.
It's good when you've got a counter argument, though.
It is good. It's good, but I think it's
satisfying.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I think it's definitely good in moderation, but I wouldn't want to live there.
Oh no, definitely not. I'm all for trying to keep your army as like historically accurate as possible and things like that. But some people you see on the pages take it to extremes. Like, you've used the wrong shade of green on that uniform. That didn't come into effect until 1944.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They're my plastic suits.
Exactly.
Them how I like.
Do some Hello Kitty ones and post them up, and just you'd be ankle deep in boiling piss before the post hit the floor. But no, I think that's one of the interesting things about bolt action as well, is it's not again, coming back to that whole thing, it's not a strictly historical war game. It's very light touch in that regard. It allows you to kind of play as you want to play it. Like, they have lists, and they have campaign books that they come out with, which have kind of historically accurate lists to build from, and allow you to model your guys to the
not just historical. Like, they've got the Hollywood style. Ryan scenarios.
They've embraced that.
Kelly's
Heroes, exactly. The Oddball Sherman and everything. And there was horrible Hollywood Tigers, which I don't understand. You can buy them in a box of 3. It's like that's just masochism.
Wrong.
But I think they're definitely playing up on that side of things as well, and certainly I think you've taken it a slightly higher degree of historical accuracy than I have with your SS that you're doing at the moment. I kind of, well, again, I probably leapt in too early and didn't do the research. So my paratroopers and the British guys I built were really just built to first of all, I did the kind of rule of cool, and then I realised that half of the stuff I'd built was invalid as a in the army selector, so I had to go back and break some arms off and take off Piats and add on and add on Lee Enfield number 4s and stuff. But
I mean, it's easy to fall into that trap. I've done it with these guys as well.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I've built a full squad with assault rifles, but then I found the kind of organisational breakdown in squads, and it just never happened like that. But you can do it. The rules are there for you to do it if you want.
Absolutely, and I think I wouldn't. Well, me personally, I wouldn't get too upset if I came across someone that was fielding something like that, and it was, they had, as long as within the rules of the game. I think, I'm not sure about the SS composition, but I think it's normally up to 10 men. You can have four assault rifles or 4 SMGs and an LMG, that kind of thing, and that's your kind of fairly standard infantry section in the game. Although historically, as you say, it might not have actually been the case that they were ever fielded like that. It would normally be more rifles and maybe just one SMG, and that's kind of when I've went back now and I've started going back and breaking the arms off my poor paratroopers and replacing them with fairly accurate loadouts. There's some really good kind of infographics. I think it's Order of Battle or battleorders.com. This guy's got a Patreon and a YouTube channel, and he does the full breakdown of platoons and what they're armed with all the way through.
Is that the guy on YouTube?
Yeah. No, it's really good.
A few of his stuff, it's really good.
So yeah, I was using his because he does one for the paratroopers and the British infantry section, and I was managed to go back and make sure I got my second NCO in the section with a mortar and all this kind of stuff, and it helps you get into it, I think, if you're
See, we were moaning about the rivet counters a minute ago, but I think we're slowly becoming one.
But I mean, it's another aspect to it as well, because that's something we touched on, was it actually gets you motivated to research stuff and do a bit of digging and that kind of thing, and it's probably a good thing. It's probably, I don't want to say it's productive, but it's probably more productive than diving deep into the lore of a sci-fi franchise or something. At least it's giving you some kind of
something that actually happened.
Maybe talk about it at parties or something. I don't know. It's depending where you go, but it's that idea that it is actually, there's another aspect to it beyond the playing of the game and the hobbying that you can actually get a bit involved in, and for me it was my grandfather was in the commandos, and actually one of the things I really wanted to do was make a small commando force, and it's actually me being me, it's now became a fairly sizable commando force. But one of the things I wanted to do was accurately model a commando squad or commando section and build up from there. And then in doing so, I started researching a bit more about him and his experiences, and reading diaries from D-Day and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like it sucks you right into it, and you do kind of feel a wee bit more obliged to do things properly at that point. And then you go on and post it up on Facebook and you get torn to shreds for it anyway. So it's I think one of the things that kind of annoyed me about another topic, I guess we can talk about. I don't know, just rambling. But one of the topics is the models are inexpensive and they're getting better. One of the things they're doing is there's a new British set coming out next month. And it's it's all in the new style, but most of the sets are really good. Some of the original sets, like the basic, your kind of Bobby Basic, German Blitzkrieg, and your
the older kind of stuff, as you say, the molding wasn't the best on them.
It's just everything's kind of out of proportion. Everything's a bit wonky looking,
and things don't really go together very well.
No, it's an exercise in absolute restraint trying to.
I mean, I've been quite fortunate with the kits I've worked with. They've all been the kind of newer style, and they've all. The only thing I had an issue with was one of the resin kits that I got.
They still do a lot of resin. They're actually, I think, Warlord resins. They're kind of marketing that as a new thing now as well. They've got this kind of new bendy resin, which I think they're starting to cast everything in, which I'm sure.
Don't get me wrong, the resin kits are really good. Good detail on them. I've got a couple of the tanks of resin. And I've got some new stuff on the way for this current project as well. It's all resin, so.
I mean, One of the things I did was with the British, the kind of standard infantry guys. For the most part, because I had so many bits left over from my paratroopers, which are one of the newer kits, I was able to kind of chop up that, and with a little bit of sanding and green stuff and filing, you can kind of get the modern arms and heads onto the older bodies, and it looks quite good in my opinion. That was one of the things I did though, was with the commando kits, they come with the old heads which have got detachable caps effectively, so you can give them their green beret, or you can give them kind of just the standard Tommy helmets. But one of the things that I always found iconic about commandos is the cap comforters that they wore, the kind of little beanies. So I was thinking, well, you can buy them for £4. You can buy a set of 4 metal ones from Warlord for £10 or something. But I was like, I'm not going down that route. So started modelling out the green stuff, and I was quite proud of myself. And then as soon as I put them up on Facebook, I got torn to shreds for the angle of the peak or whatever it was. So again, it's just another lesson in that whole.
I mean, you can take offence at those. Yeah, you can take offence at those sort of things, but I think the guys do mean well. They're just trying to point you in the right direction.
And it's good to see that kind of passion. It'd be, again, it's more productive, but
I know,
it's fine. That's fine.
But I learned quite a lot today just from talking about camouflage with people on one of the Facebook groups, and found out things about the unit I'm modelling these on that I didn't know. So
that's really good.
It's good to get that kind of information, and there's people out there that are a lot more knowledgeable than myself on World War II and everything that happened. So it's a resource out there for you to plough.
Absolutely.
For want of a better word.
I think there probably was a better word there, but that's fine. Harvest, maybe? I don't know. Ploughing is that you do before you gather it. But anyway,
I'm all about the ploughing.
Farm semantics, that's fine. But it's something, again, like getting sort of back on the fag packet of topics that we had. Historical accuracy versus playing the game to your best ability is one of those ones which is interesting. I think you might not win all the games if you've got a 10-man squad with all rifles and an LMG, because that's what they had, versus the opportunity to give them all assault rifles and whatever else.
Exactly.
But you'll get a pleasure out of it. Potentially, I don't know. You get a pleasure out of.
And that's the thing. Like a lot of people reference like the bolt action rules to being more like a Hollywood film. It's quick and it's quick and action packed. It's not, as you say, you're not bogged down with loads of logistics and trying to loads of stats to worry about. Like it's quick fire action. The way I kind of envisage it is like the old Commando comics.
Yeah, so I think for me, Commando comics is a big influence as well, and I think that's one of the ways I tried to do my Commandos in that vein, and definitely going more Hollywood than historical. But again, treading that line, I think's probably good, and it's one of those ones that, again, I think when we play together, if we ever get to play together again, when we play together, it will be
like?
Exactly. we kind of, I think we're accepting of each other's armies, hopefully, and we're not crossing the streams in terms of theatres and stuff. I did take my DAC out against you in the middle of Normandy, which maybe I don't know if I could feel the burning rage inside you when you're playing against them. But
it
was either that or the fact
invited you back.
Yeah, it's either that or the fact that I had 2 LMGs per squad or something. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think there's obviously the whole competitive scene and the tournament scene where you start to see things like mirror matches or blue on blue or mismatching time periods and everything like that. And I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't like that. And for me, it wouldn't really interest me. I wouldn't if I ever did. If I ever to get into the kind of tournament scene or whatever, I guess you know that's what you're there for, and you're not too bothered about the period. But I don't know. And I think they do events where they do themed campaigns and themed events, and like you've got what's it called, on Tabletop, Beasts of War, like do a boot camp where they do a special themed event weekend and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely ways to get into it and play with other people and still maintain a bit of immersion and stuff, which is quite cool.
it is a relatively popular game as well. There's a lot of groups out there. I found a Scotland bolt action group today.
Yeah, it seems to be
Facebook.
massive.
Yeah, so it's unusual if Scotland's got a following on it.
No, absolutely. I think I'd read somewhere that it's second only to 40k these days in terms of in kind of groups and clubs and stuff. It's the second most played game, which is really positive for that whole potential revival of historical gaming and stuff. As long as everyone can play nicely together and realize it's maybe not that historical a game or historically accurate somewhere, somewhere in between.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I enjoy about it as well is the scale, and I don't just mean the 28mm scale. It's that itself is fun to paint and stuff. It makes it for a pain in the arse for storing terrain and stuff. But the scale of it, by what I mean, is like kind of platoon level engagements as well. It's good.
You're not having thousands of miniatures.
Yeah.
Like we said at the start, you can get into it with just a box of infantry.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll have a decent force that will. It might not. Granted, it might not stand up against tanks and things like that, but you get a game with your friend, no problem.
Well, absolutely, and you can even play. I mean, we played our first couple of games on kind of 4x2 table, and eventually kind of got up to a 6x4. But it's one of those ones as well with all the terrain on it, really densely packed terrain suits it, and it's not like playing a lot of games where you've got 2 or 3 bits of terrain on the board and that's your lot. You can really pack it in with bolt action and it makes a great looking table as well. Also plays really well, and it means you can play on a smaller table and get away with it with less units and stuff as well. So it definitely works that way. It's something I'm not sure how well it scales out beyond that. I know that you can feasibly do multiple platoons, in a game, go past the 2,000 point kind of mark, whatever. And
I've seen guys on the groups talking about games that have taken like 4 days and things like that to complete.
I guess
that's what they're into. Then go for it.
Absolutely, it's not necessarily for me. And I think
it's more time than anything else.
Well, these days, exactly, times. I think, but I just think it seems to be really, really well designed for that kind of size of engagement. And it means that if someone brings a tank, they're the big boy on campus kind of thing, and that's cool. And a tank, as we've found out, tanks can be either game changing, super effective, or do nothing. And a total point sink. But it's kind of cool, and I like that. I like that aspect to it as well. That there's nothing beyond that really. No one's bringing a Titan out or anything like that kind of thing to really ruin your day. So it's kind of good in that way. It's concise and compact again is maybe the wrong word, but it's
we have been quite sensible with the tanks, so we've not brought on any super heavy things or anything like that.
No, exactly. And I think it's one of those things. I mean, there is a tank war dedicated kind of rule set or kind of add on for it that you can play with, and there's other rule sets you can use with tanks at 28mm, and it's just one of those ones. I think even on a 6x4 table with a few tanks, you could probably get away with it if it's like a platoon engagement of 3 tanks versus 3 tanks, that kind of thing. But if you want to do that, I think you'd be better finding something in 15mm or 6mm or whatever, 10mm, and doing a proper company level engagement at that point. I think that
or try different rule sets.
Exactly.
There's some tank things out there. I think it's What a Tanker.
There's 2 Fat Lardies do.
So there's. There's nothing stopping you using your Warlord models for things like that as well. And
well, I mean that's what I was just about to say. I mean it's another aspect to World War II gaming, I guess, or buying World War II models is they're infinitely reusable for loads of different things. Well, obviously all World War II, but what I mean. They're kind of the figure agnosticness of a lot of these rule sets. You can buy whichever models you want and use them. And generally speaking, though, you just pick the ones that aesthetically you like the best. So
Yeah.
it's good in that way as well, that you're not totally tied in. So
No, totally.
yeah, it's I think one of the things I was going to talk about as well was just about the kind of abstraction of it. Again, coming back to the rules a little bit. Something I do enjoy is like I said earlier. I think a rifle bullet is, or a rifle in the game is a rifle in the game, whether it's a Lee Enfield number 4 or Mauser or a Mosin Nagant or whatever. It's the stat line's effectively the same. There's that level of abstraction there where they're not going into the minutiae of detail for that. You've got effectively, assault rifles, submachine guns, rifles, and they've all got the same stats. And
yeah,
there's
the main modifiers in the rules is things like cover, range, and whether your guy's been shot at the round before.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all fairly constant.
Kind of pressure builds up, and they'll struggle to hit and things like that. So it's a really,
that's
really nice system.
On the face of it, you think if it's every round, if every rifle has a potential to kill a guy outright with no saving throw, or well, there's a sort of a saving throw, but with that, you'd think it'd be quite a lethal game and it'd be over in one turn. But in actual fact, because of the suppression rules and the inability of, or the ineffectiveness to actually land shots, is actually means the game kind of plays out a bit longer than you'd maybe think. Which is good. And again, I think that level of abstraction is really well implemented, and the fact that it's just kind of humans again, maybe it's a bit obvious, but the fact that it's soldiers who have a kind of limitation to them is interesting to play with. That there's not this kind of, you've not got hero characters,
no superheroes. No.
Yeah, there's nobody buffing everyone within a 12-inch circle and giving them all extra shots or whatever.
You do get the morale boost from your lieutenants and things like that.
Yeah,
but other than that, there's nothing really to boost your troops.
Yeah, I like the fact that there's not. I mean, there is a meta game associated with it, and if you read up on the forums, I'm sure there'll be again ways of min-maxing it and that kind of thing. But there's not so much reliance on synergies, and I think a lot of games nowadays have that aspect to them, which I don't necessarily buy into, because a lot of the time I feel like it's almost just a marketing trick to get you to buy the whole thing. I know that we used to play a lot of X-Wing, and that kind of went that way a bit, where you could buy a ship, but it would be no use unless you bought another ship, which gave you the card to use with that ship. And you go down that whole rabbit hole, whereas you're not really getting that with this game. You see what you get, and it's
it kind of reminds me of chess a little bit, where you've got all of your units in front of you. You can move one of those units at a time on your turn. So you're that's one of the things I like about it, is the kind of randomness of it. You don't know what unit your opponent's going to activate next, or if you want to put yours out in the open first and take a chance. So it's that kind of back and forward, and even
that was a nail-biting one for me. Sorry, that was a nail-biting one for me. I don't know if we've been playing the rules entirely correctly, but from what I understand, it's the way is you drive up the field with a half track full of your finest veteran grenadiers, whatever. You drive them up the main road, but then you don't know if you're going to be able to actually activate the guys inside the half track for another 2 or 3 turns, and at that point they could get blown away by a Sherman or something. So it gives you.
I think we should mention the way the actual turn system works.
Yeah, I mean, good point. I mean,
just so people know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so if you've listened to the previous podcast about the Warlord Games system, it's one of the things they're trying to do, I think, at Warlord is tie everything together into a fairly kind of easily transferable set of rules between the games. So they've got Beyond the Gates of Antares, Bolt Action, and then they've got the 2000 AD games, and they all seem to use this core mechanic of kind of random activation based on a bag of either chips or dice for each player's side, and you take turns drawing dice out of the bag, and that determines who's going to activate. So it's not a you move all your guys first and shoot, and I move all my guys second and shoot, or back and forth. It's even more random than that.
Yeah,
and it's it's something it's really it does build up the tension and never leaves you like
totally when you're not pulling out your dice and you're
you can-
constantly pulling out your opponent's stuff.
exactly. It's like gambling, which is kind of addictive. It's something that's I think it does get a little bit of criticism for is again from the people that are looking on the face of it and seeing it as a historical accurate game. The randomness of it is kind of off-putting for a lot of people. It is very heavily dependent on luck and dice and pulling the right thing at the right moment and kind of clutch moments and things like that. But at first when I looked at it, it was one of the things that put me off a bit, because there's a lot of tactical maneuvering and finding cover and choosing the right moment to activate and stuff like that, which is totally that's your tactics, that's your game part of it, your strategy part of it, and then at the end of the day you're kind of at the behest of the dice gods after that. But it does make for some really interesting moments. I mean,
totally.
the first game we played, it's the kind of anecdote I'll probably take to my grave now about this game is it was the time when my stubborn veteran Fallschirmjäger
elite
unit, guy came charging down the road. Took some fire, failed the morale test. I rolled double sixes for the morale, which is called the foo bar, and you have to roll on a special chart for it. And once you do that, it gives you results based on that. And I rolled double sixes, and I think it was followed by maybe another six or whatever it is in the chart. But effectively, they shot each other. They saw their friends as enemies, turned on each other, let loose a hail of bullets, took down a couple of their own guys, and then ran back up the road. Ran off the table, and it's one of those things that just looks so stupid. Like it just looks so implausible in a historic game or whatever. But it was great fun, and it was at the time I was probably quite annoyed, but it was one of those ones that's like it's
quite annoyed.
But it's one of those ones that it makes for
storm out after that. No?
Flip the table through the chocolate cake you'd offered me back in your face. But it is one of those ones that makes for kind of great gaming moments or whatever. So it's kind of worth it to have those things in the game, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's one of the things I really like about it is, as you say, the randomness and things that can happen. I mean, people who've listened to previous podcasts will know I'm a GM for Alien, so I like to kind of elaborate on things that have happened like that in my head, where like there's a lot of smoke on the battlefield and they've just seen soldiers running by and they don't know who they are, so they've just opened fire and things like that. So yeah, I like that kind of aspect of it.
It builds a narrative, doesn't it?
Totally, yeah.
I mean, as you say, it's a game of chess at the end of the day, but if it builds a little bit of narrative into it, then that's all better for it.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's just a really quick, fun game in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I say, we're both still getting very much into the basics of it, so we're not authorities on it by any means, but from what we've played so far, I think we're both pretty keen.
Yeah, it's easy to pick everything up, like especially if you start kind of small, like we did. Well, I did. It kind of gives you the introduction how to work the infantry in it, and then you add a vehicle into it, and you get some extra rules you need to learn, and just build it up from there. And there's really not much else to it.
Yeah,
once it comes into that.
And they do a kind of skirmish. They do a kind of skirmish level FAQ or kind of one-page rules supplement that they add into the game as well to allow you to literally play with half a dozen guys, and you can even buy the individual sprues of guys, which are normally 5 or 6 on a sprue, and that's even enough to get you started. And that's
exactly.
But if you really wanted to start small and build up from there or try something out, and that's I guess that's one of the kind of addictive drug-like parts to it, is you just think all I need is these.
All I need.
These 5 guys, and that's it. I've started going down a rabbit hole as well. I mean, I have just ordered up some more stuff today or yesterday, for my DAC, and I think they'll become one of my kind of main armies. I think my DAC, my Deutsch Africa Corps, and my British kind of late war will be my two bread and butter armies
Yeah.
that I'll bring out. I've got a little late war sort of fairly soupy list of Germans as well, where I've got, like a little squad of Fallschirmjäger, a little 12-man or 10-man grenadier squad, Panzer Grenadier squad, and a couple of
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that was more just me buying stuff I wanted to paint and fielding, which is another good thing you can do with the kind of big. They've got these kind of reinforced lists for each faction, which allow you to almost pick anything
Pick whatever you want. Yeah.
not theater specific. And if you want to go that way, that's cool. And it gives you a chance to kind of play with different stuff and buy what you want.
Yep.
Even if it might not be the most kind of time accurate or historically accurate thing to do. So I've got those guys, and I'll probably still add stuff to them as well, because that's one of those Normandy 44, that kind of period is one of the bits that interests me a lot, as well as the North African campaign. But it does also, like I was saying earlier, it kind of opens the door into all these little conflicts you might not know too much about, or things you've always had a little fancy for. So I've started now looking at Australians, miniatures. I've still started looking at the Australian kits, and some of the stuff, because they've got some quite cool stuff. They've got like commandos with these Owens guns, which are kind of weird looking submachine guns, and they've got their kind of jungle fighters, and I've got quite a lot of jungle terrain. So it kind of
justifying it.
But then if I do that, I've got to, they could fight against the DAC in a kind of non-historical what if scenario, when
scenarios,
maybe because the DAC were meant to be sort of North Africa and the kind of tropical uniforms and stuff like that, so they could have feasibly been fighting in the jungle things as well if it went that way. So so it's I've already got the opposing force for them, so the justification kind of writes itself. But then you start looking at winter warfare, and you start looking at Soviets and Finns and stuff, and just like you could just go so deep into it. But as you say, all you need is that one sprue, and then that's you. You can start going, and it's so dangerous.
It's exactly like I said to you today. I was like, I might start an SAS force so we can play against your DAC.
No, you should.
Just a couple of jeeps and maybe a couple of guys.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, those resin jeeps are about 40 quid each, but that's fine.
I know, but there are other. I was looking at the Rubicon kits as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely options.
They do some nice plastic kits. If you're looking at that,
you can always commandeer my Opel Blitz as well. I think that was one of the things the SAS were kind of quite good at doing, was stealing the German truck. That's definitely one. But I mean, I'm still waiting for you to buy this boat. We've seen the
submarine.
Oh yeah, there's a submarine if you're going to do a Kriegsmarine kind of force. I think you can also get the Soviet Naval Brigade, which comes with like a river patrol boat.
Oh yeah, seen that. That's beautiful.
Long resin boat for like 50 quid, and it's just like
what am I going to do with
exactly?
that?
You don't have any rivers. You don't have any coast. You don't have any you need to build a canal or something on your map, on your board.
I was thinking about that the other day, and I talked myself out of it.
Yeah, well, I've already started looking at building little coastal kind of towns and little water effects and things like that.
Just in preparation for me just crumbling and buying.
If I build it,
resin boat.
It's like, I've built you this, Chris. You've got to play.
You need to buy it.
Yeah, so it is a total rabbit hole, and then I think you can go a bit mad with it. So restraint is always ordered. And I think again, coming back to like terrain and stuff like that is another one. The limitations of terrain maybe dictate what you buy as well. But unfortunately, I've got terrain for all theatres, so anyway,
I was smart with that one.
Snowy, so that's probably the best.
Yeah, I was smart with the terrain. I told my brother to take care of all of that, so he's got all of that. So I've not got that excuse.
So other than the SAS, is there anything you're got your eye on?
As you alluded to there, the Kriegsmarine, which is basically the German Navy. I found them quite interesting just through looking at their things online and seeing what other people had done. I'd seen someone had posted a picture of a submarine sailing up a river, this big resin submarine, and loads of little German patrol boats and like troops alongside the riverbank and all that, and it just captures.
See, the thing is, if you do that though, I'd have to buy the Royal Navy or the Royal Marine Commandos in the canoes or the kayaks you can get.
Exactly.
Silent stens and satchel charges, and I'm just like, see,
you want to.
I know. Oh, God.
So yeah, I'm in two minds at the moment. I've just done a German force. My brother's got a German force, and I've got the airborne.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm thinking maybe something desert-like to fight against the Dak.
Cool.
Potentially.
Aye.
Good. And like you were saying, I do love the winters kind of scenarios as well. So yeah, probably all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got nothing but time, so
yeah, time. I need to do some extra work, I think, and fund my habit a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of projects on my list. I've still got other game systems sitting behind me, staring at me as I'm painting these. So
yeah. Well,
it's trying to find the balance. But
absolutely.
as you say, now's the time to get all your projects done and painted.
Yeah.
I think that's one good thing that's come out of lockdown is like my paintings come on leaps and bounds.
Yes, you can actually paint Nazi camo. What did you do in lockdown, Grandad? Well,
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but aye, definitely painting models is definitely came on a good bit. So
absolutely.
Get into bolt action. You won't regret it.
No, exactly. And I think that's our take on bolt action for the moment. And once we get some more games under the belt, maybe we've got enough in the tank for another chat about it at some point. But I think that's definitely our 2 cents on it, as they'd say. Well and truly expelled.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening to our ramblings.
Absolutely, and apologies if I did ramble, but it's the way I do it.
I'm sure they're used to you by now, Craig.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris and Craig, for sharing your thoughts, and I hope that was of interest to the bolt action community. Speaking of which, we'd love to hear from you to let us know which aspects of bolt action you'd like us to focus on for future episodes. So please just drop us a comment below the video or find us somewhere on social media. We're all over the place there, and we'll be delighted to hear from you, and we want to try and provide those conversations that you want to hear. Also, if you're new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe to us, or better still, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, please consider recommending our podcast to your friends. So until next time though, keep on living the life of Die.